Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to my review of Europa Universalis IV, Art of War. I'm your lovely host, Kailvin, and today we're not going to be just talking about Art of War, but also Res Publica and Wealth of Nations, as they have both been released between, well, now and my last review, which I reviewed the base game and Conquest of Paradise. So I've had some time to play around a bit with Art of War, and I'm ready to answer a couple of questions about it. For example, does this expansion pack make any significant changes that affect the original review? And to answer the question, yes. And we're going to be talking about a lot of those changes. Now, the first and foremost change is that you'll notice that outside of Europe, there are a lot more provinces now. They've, according to Paradox, added 800 to 900 provinces, which is great. They've also optimized the game, so even though they've added a pile of provinces, it actually runs better. And you know what? It's hard to argue against optimization unless you're Ubisoft. So good on you, Paradox. And always remember to keep optimization at heart. Alright. And this is always nice. You know, it's good to see places outside of Europe get love. Now, in addition to this, there is also some new systems that have been implemented. Actually, before I talk about those, I would like to highlight something. In my last review, I leveled a serious criticism against the game for playing outside of Europe, in the fact that everything in the game being tied to Monarch points effectively meant that the power point penalties based on tech group were pretty bad. Because if I were in the vanilla EU4, then I would have a -2 penalty to administrative, diplomatic, and military power. I'd be making 5, 5, and 6. That's about, you know, a 25% reduction. Now, you might say, oh well, so that means you'll fall behind in tech. Except that it doesn't. Because the points are used for a lot of things outside of technology. In particular, creating cores costs administrative points. Taking provinces in a peace deal costs diplomatic points. Getting generals costs military points. So, to me, the idea that, you know, it's falling behind in tech may be okay, but you just have less to do. These are effectively a form of action points for a lot of things that allow you to, well, take actions. You know, if you don't have enough admin points, you can't core provinces. And so, effectively, as a nation outside of Europe, you would just sit around more often and not do anything, simply because, well, you didn't have enough points. You were unfortunate enough to be outside of Europe, so you didn't get as many points. And that was ultimately and agreeably by just about everybody extremely silly. And I'm glad the Paradox has changed this. This is very good, and I'm glad they are moving a step in the right direction. In addition to this, to help out with the fair randomness of the game, you now have a national focus system. National focus allows you to add +2 to, say, military power, at the expense of -1 on the other two. So it's an even trade, you don't lose anything. See? 10, 6, 6, 10. Boom. So that's not too bad, and that's always nice to have happen, just in case you end up rolling, you know, a 4-4-0 or something, which happens a lot. So, you definitely don't have to start falling behind terribly. You can only change this once every 25 years, but overall, I like it. It's a good improvement to help reduce the randomness of things. And, in addition to this, let's see, what's the other thing? Ah, yes, the unrest system that we'll be talking about. Now, back in regular EU4 and EU3, and I believe before that as well, there was just simply a revolt risk in every province that would, every so often, based on the revolt risk, spew out a stack of rebels, which, let's face it, is fairly underwhelming. So they've replaced it with a new system, called the unrest system. So, if we have a look around here, there are some provinces, and I don't have any provinces with unrest right now, but I can change that through the autonomy system, which we'll be talking about later. Apparently not there. There we are. So, now we have a province with unrest. You can see all the varying affected modifiers. You know, despotic monarchy -1, pigtail or death, local traditions, legitimacy, courthouse, tolerance, etc. And in particular, autonomy decrease, giving it +10, actually puts it in the positives. So now we can go here. This will take it around, but I actually want to go here. So we can have a look at the rebels. We now have ye nationalists. Now, this new unrest system is basically a progress until uprising. So, you take the positive unrest provinces, remember positive in this case being bad, and add them together. And that is the chance that every month, 5% will be added to the progress. When the progress reaches 100%, the rebels launch their attack. And any province that is aligned, you can tell what rebel faction the province is aligned to by looking at this flag. These are Yi nationalists. These are Qing particularists. Com nationalists, different kind of nationalist. Got to be careful on that. Dali nationalists. And so now we have 2 with 2.8%, which makes it 5.6% that it'll increase. Now this is obviously fairly small, but it can get out of hand if you're not careful. So, it also tells you an estimation until the next revolt. It's not particularly accurate because it is, you know, a dice roll, effectively. And those are rather hard to be predictable with. So, once this means that any province that is allied, or aligned, sorry, to that rebel faction will then spew out rebel stacks. And they will be fairly sizable. Like, close to the provincial, supply limit, generally. So we can probably think around 30 for these, which are fairly sizable, without question. And, you know, if a decent number of provinces, say this whole region, were all aligned to one province, or one rebel faction, rather, then I could be facing things much larger than my own army, which tends to be the thing with rebels. They will tend to actually outnumber you, which is okay because your army tends to be better, which is another odd change they've made with Art of War, is now rebels are a lot more organized than they should be. Peasant revolts in particular. Peasant revolts I find amusing because they come equipped with large quantities of cavalry and cannons, whereas in the original EU4 they were just infantry, which made a fair bit of sense, let's face it here. And say, for example, the noble rebels were the ones that you really had to watch out for because they came equipped with a very powerful army, which makes sense. But overall, not too shabby. It's a very good improvement, I think. And now we can get into the system that's tied to autonomy. Back in EU4, there was a modifier called provincial autonomy, which you generally got from negotiating with rebels and trying to meet them in the middle. And this was basically, alright, fine, no taxes or manpower from this province for 20 years, but they also won't revolt, which can be helpful. Now you have a modifier called autonomy, which affects you. For example, having 14% autonomy means I get 14% less money and manpower from the province. It also means it's minus 7% trade power. So if you had a province with 100% autonomy, you'd be getting practically jack all from it. Now, this also does tie into the rebel system. For a lot of provinces, being occupied will mean that they actually increase in autonomy over time. And assuming that the rebels fail to enforce their demands, but say can hold on to a couple of provinces, then once those provinces hit 100 autonomy, they will just simply declare independence. They will be fully autonomous. So you have to watch out for that. That means if a province has high autonomy and is in revolt, you're in trouble. Gotta take that back, you know? Now, you also, while this will decrease over time, and it does depend on your government, let me show you that. For example, fine, admin 10. Apparently I can't change governments at all by my current form of government. That's disappointing. But you'll find that most forms of government have monthly autonomy change reductions, in particular the later game governments, starting with Administrative Monarchy, which you unlock at level 12 Admin Tech. And these have an increase to the monthly autonomy change. There's a similar setup for the Republics as well, and you also get a flat minus 10 while being at peace. So, over time, autonomy will decrease. That's good. That's good. Over time, you know, they'll get used to being inside of you, and they'll get used to living their life as your slave. Now, you can try and force things around with these buttons, increase or decrease autonomy. Doing this directly affects the unrest of the province. If you have an unruly province in revolt, you might wish to actually increase its autonomy, because that will grant a minus 10 local unrest penalty. here it's -8, but if I do this, -18. It lasts for 30 years, so that's pretty damn good, I'd say. It's 30 years without revolt for 25% local autonomy. I like it. Equally, you can do that, and reduce the province's autonomy. This has the opposite effect of giving 10 unrest for 30 years. So, you know, if you're particularly stable in certain regions and just want to get rid of some annoying autonomy, then that's a good idea. That's great. You can just, you know, brush off the autonomy. Just be like, there. And you get tiny amount of unrest that you don't really need to worry about. And now we have 2 groups of rebels who are slowly going to try and rise up. So, on to the next feature that no, okay, I can't talk about that one right now. We'll get to that. Is my favorite feature, the client state. So, the client state is a feature that I believe was inspired by the Victoria II colony system, where they added the ability to create custom colonies in an almost similar fashion to this. So I've gone through, I've pressed a button, and I got to punch in a name, choose the government, choose the dynasty, and choose the flag for my client state, which is great. And now, I can just press some buttons, and I can add territories to it. It's great. I can, you know, carve the map out my way. Unfortunately, it's only available starting at Tech 22, which I believe arrives for the Europeans around 1700. So, it gets pretty late in the game when you start actually being able to do this, which blows. You can actually modify the color of your nation as well, and all that. They basically become your own little custom thing. Luckily, there is a mod that enables these at the start, and I highly recommend it. Because you know what? These just make the game more awesome. So I can just sit here all day giving provinces away. You can, however, only have a maximum of 10 client states. That should be noted. Alright. So that's the client state, and it is now simply a vassal. It is a constitutional republic. And, you know, all things are good with it. It is its own functional little vassal who will over time build troops and stuff. They pay money to me, and everybody's happy. Well, they don't pay much right now, but it is what it is. Alright. They also changed something with the HRE. You'll note that the religious peace is currently in effect, which is based on the Treaty of Westphalia, which historically happened after the 30 Years' War. So we're going to be jumping out of Qing, and we're going to be hopping over to middle-aged Europe. Yeah, middle-aged in this game, around 1600. For the 30 Years' War. Here we are. Let's knock back. Let's knock back just a little here. There we are. And we'll leave Brandenburg, sure. Alright. So, the new religious system in the HRE is definitely an interesting thing. There is now the Protestant Catholic fighting that happens. Somewhere around 1570 to 1600, the Evangelical Union and I can't remember what the other one's proper name is, but we'll just call them the Catholic and the Protestant League, will engage in what is known as religious war. The Holy Roman Empire is in a state of religious war between Catholic and Protestant faiths. During a religious war, Protestant Catholic leagues are available to be joined, and a league that does not follow the dominant faith in the empire may declare war on the emperor to attempt to change the empire's dominant faith. Now, this change in particular is that you can only elect people of the dominant faith. So I can only elect from Catholics right now, or Protestants are not available to run. This also means that other forms of Christendom, such as Orthodox, Reformed, Coptic, which got added in, by the way, forgot to mention that. Very happy about that. They desperately needed that. And this is great. This adds a little flavor to it. It's not exactly easy to do it, but it can be done. And this will automatically call everyone in. If we did this right now, we'd die horribly. Now, I'm not exactly certain what the requirement for getting a religious peace is. However, if for 100 years the non-dominant religion, either Catholic or Orthodox, does not declare war to try and change it, or should they lose a war, then they will ultimately be eradicated. Well, not really. Not really eradicated, but the religious war period will end, and either Catholic or Protestant will become the dominant faith permanently. This will mean that all electors who are not the dominant faith they will lose their position, and the dominant faith can never again change. Now, I'm not certain if I really like that system. I feel like it's a little staticky, but it's a definite improvement from the old system. So, moving in the right direction, that's for sure. A more dynamic structure where if, say, a certain percentage of the empire is not the right religion, then a religious conflict can erupt between those two. I mean, let's say Protestantism never takes off, and Reformed really does. Or Orthodox somehow enters the empire, and so on. You know, a little more of a elasticy system that allows for that sort of thing would be good. Now, speaking of Reformed, there is also the Netherlands, among others. Actually, I can switch over to Switzerland, so I can show off the new Reformed mechanics. The Reformed now have what is called fervor points. Now, the fervor points can be spent on a focus: trade, war, and stability. Stability, you know, it costs first 5 points to activate, and then withdraws the same amount of points each month. While having enabled, it will have the following effects. I get 3 fervor points a month, but it'll drain 5 a month, so not exactly going to work out so well. You can have multiple of these activated at the same time if you really need to burn through your fervor, which is good. So you want to spend time building up fervor, and then say if you go into a harsh war, maybe you need some extra army morale, or oh no, the rebels are going to be coming. Maybe reducing national unrest a bit. So you want to save up and really try and expend yourself in the darker times, which is good. It's a good system. I really do wish that Protestants had something going for them, because the Catholics also have something new as well. Tag FRA, sure. Francis Catholic, right? Yeah. Which is the change to the Holy See. Now you can take a series of actions throughout the Holy See, depending on the cardinals and how much papal influence you have. Yes, you can spend 5 papal influence. And these are the number of active cardinals that one has. Alright. So, we have to have a look here. I'm not entirely certain how cardinals are generated. I haven't really looked into that. But I'm fairly certain that large Catholic nations, just like always, probably get more of them. And based on the number of cardinals, you get papal influence. So I can spend that. For example, levy a church tax, costs 100 papal influence, but guesses 409 ducats. Indulgence for the sins, gain 10 legitimacy, but costs 60 papal influence. Forgive usury, interest per annum, -1. Send papal legate, which gets you a inquisitor, a theologian, a statesman, or a diplomat. Sanction commercial monopoly. Wow, that's powerful. Gain 1 mercantilism for that. I'd love that. Oof. Proclaim a holy war, which grants you some manpower, and also allows you, well, you have to be at war, and I believe you have to be at war with someone who isn't Catholic. Beatify local saint, which is 100 papal influence just for a straight 1 stability point. This is really good to gain, you know, your 2nd and 3rd stability point. And finally, bless ruler for 10 prestige. So you do get a nice lot of possible actions to spend papal influence on, and it really livens up the Catholic game. The system before wasn't particularly great. I'm not gonna lie. But you know what? It's pretty good now. I like this system. It's good. It really is. It's a definite improvement, and I think that's actually the general theme of this expansion pack. It's a definite improvement. Let's see, what else? There have been some more changes to the trade system. I'm just going to turn off Terra Incognita here. They've added in a lot of new nodes, and in particular generally overhauled certain areas, including West Africa. You'll notice that there's actually nations down here, go figure. I never knew there were nations down there before. And so now we have Ethiopia as an inland trade node here. We have whatever this one's called, Katsina. Timbuktu was there before. And we have in general a lot more trade nodes. I also made some changes to how some of the trade nodes work. But overall, it's just a slightly better trade system. I'm personally not a particularly large fan of the trade system and how it works. I was much more liking the EU3. I don't really like the trade flow system. I really wish that, you know, trade nodes were just simply connected. And you could move trade either way. You know, it's kind of unfair to have all the ending trade nodes just situated right here, which are the big collection points. Big collection points. You can get tons there. Rather than, you know, a powerful India just trying to, you know, stop trade being dragged this way, it should actually be able to suck trade back this way, and so on. These are some potential ideas for how I'd like to see trade change in the future, but it's still a definite improvement overall. There's a lot more inland trade nodes, and it's a lot more interesting to have to work with them. But overall, it's a definite improvement. Again, the theme of these expansion packs. They've also kind of changed... Well, I wish I could show you this. They've kind of changed this region around a fair bit too, as well as down here. But unfortunately, in this time period, Castile's already conquered everything. Spain, rather, sorry. Now, let's see. Is there anything else I'm missing? Well, they changed the revolution system a bit, but not really enough to note. More than that. The revolution system's got some minor improvements. Overall, though, I would say this game is significantly improved, simply as a result of Paradox taking criticism and trying to work with it. And I feel that I need to apologize for that Paradox, because I levied some pretty heavy criticism about things that I doubted would change in the game, and they changed them. So, my hats are off to you, Paradox. Good job. So, last things to note, this region, as you can see, there is now a lot new people all over the place, rather than just a general Inca. And similarly up here we have, you know, the Aztec, Zapotec, and many others. It isn't just the Aztec, the Zapotec, and the Maya. And I believe we have some more tribes up here, but I couldn't count them in the first place. And we also have some additional tribes out here that are actually almost worth playing, because they all pretty much have their own national ideas, which is really cool. Some of these are grouped together with the, say, Incan ideas, but that's okay. And they all have the native council system now, which means that they can move around, and they get all those native ideas, which are all cool. And they don't fall stupid far behind in tech so much anymore. At least I don't believe so. 250%. Ugh. Okay, so they still do. But that's okay. It's still a definite improvement overall. Alright, and with that, I think I can wrap up this review. I've looked at a lot of the systems that have changed, and... excuse me. We can also see more nations here. Like I said, they've done a ton of changes to the map, and I really wish I could go over them all. But 800, 900 provinces, and this video's already looking at 25 minutes. Yeah, it would take me a while. So, I recommend that you have a look for yourself. And I'm going to wrap this up with the score change for the game. Originally, I scored the game a perfectly average 5 out of 10. You know, not bad, not good. It was okay. It was alright. There's problems with it, but a lot of the problems have actually been addressed. I mean, the overhaul of the Monarch point systems alone probably adds at least a full 1 to it. And the extra provinces, the new nations, the new provincial autonomy and rebel system... I'm going to change this game's score up a little bit. Definitely. Gameplay-wise, it's definitely getting a boost. Aesthetically, I can't really say that's changed much because, well, the graphics haven't really improved. And, yeah, I'm just very pleased with it. You'll find, I think I'm going to have to say a 7. Honestly, it's that much of an improvement. and I have high hopes for the expansion packs to come. Now, unfortunately, though, I can only really recommend picking this up on sale, as, well, getting the game and all of its expansion packs suddenly can start totaling into the hundreds of dollars if you don't. Currently, EU4 is $40, Art of War is $25, I believe Res Publica is $10, Conquest of Paradise is $15. So yeah, easily we're breaking 100 at this point for all the expansion packs. That's not even counting the unit packs. So, whilst I really can't recommend any game full price here for that much to get, it's definitely good. And a lot of these features are available without Art of War. You'll still get the new provinces, you'll still get the new rebel system, you'll still get the reformed monarch point system. So honestly, I'd say the base game EU4 is just improved so significantly from this patch that I'm upping the base game to a 7 out of 10. It is greatly improved on the gameplay front. So overall, I'd like to thank everybody for watching. As always, this has been your lovely, lovely host, Kailvin, signing off.